Welcome back. Now, I think the one thing a lot of us have been wondering is how are we going to grow the Nigerian economy? We did see data from, I think it was the IMF saying that per capita GDP had dropped to about $800 plus. Probably the lowest it's been in over 2 decades. And we've got a lot of people wondering, what are we going to do to fix this? Yes, we're waiting for the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics to rebase the GDP and hopefully get realer numbers, even though some people are doubting what it might be before it even comes out. We're going to be talking today about how we're going to sell Nigeria to grow the economy, but not in the way you're thinking. I'm joined by Wale Ayontoye. He's a tech lawyer and entrepreneur. Thanks for being here today.
Ebuka, thank you for having me on the show.
What are we going to do? What are we going to do? Because those numbers blew my mind. We've gone from, I think, a high of about 3,000 plus sometime in 2013 or so per capita GDP to $800.
Yes.
Close to numbers we hear in Somalia. Makes you wonder, how did we get here? Yes, people are saying the GDP rebase is going to happen and we're going to see what the actual numbers are, even though some skeptics are saying the numbers are going to be overinflated and all of that. But what are we not doing right?
That's $1 million question. Firstly, if you take a look at so many international organizations, either fintech or other producing organization, if they're thinking of Africa, they don't think about Ghana, they don't think about Kenya, especially Africa penetration. Their focus is always Nigeria, because Nigeria has the populations, Nigeria has the human capital, pretty much everything we need in order to thrive and lead that aspect of economic empowerment and drive that growth. Let's leave the international space out now. Within Africa, Nigeria has it. Nigeria is the focal point, regardless of whatever businesses that you're trying to build, either you're trying to grow, scale, or anything. Nigeria is always very, very important to everybody. So the question is this: if the international community understand, or international organization understand how powerful Nigeria is when it comes to driving economic empowerment within the continent, why are we not seeing it ourselves? That is where the main issue is. Our major dependence on other aspects of resources that we have, and we're leaving other things that we can easily market with a little effort to international community. That is part of the areas that we're actually lacking as of today.
I feel like every head of state or president we've had for decades talks about the need to focus on agriculture. We've had different sorts of programs to try and boost that. Human capital is not something we're lacking. Now, some of the countries who have been able to leapfrog, whether you're talking about the Asian tigers or anywhere in South America, is because of the numbers they have, whether it's Brazil, Indonesia, India, China, because of the numbers they have, which Nigeria has.
Yes.
So it makes you wonder what we're doing wrong. We keep talking about, we need to grow agriculture. We need to do better with manufacturing. All in all, the one focal point is always export, export, export. We need to be an export-driven economy. So it makes you wonder, it's not a case of us not knowing what to do,
yes,
but not doing it. Why is there that impediment there?
One of the main issues is the fact that we don't really understand the power of SMEs, the small, medium business owners. They are the bread and butters of every economy. If you take a look at China as of today, one of the things that has helped China is the industrialization of the Chinese economy. One of the first things that the Chinese did, aside the fact that they invested heavily in locally made goods and productions, and now when you start thinking about the cross-border exports, that's where one of the things they did was they made it very affordable to export. Today, when you have people that live abroad and they come to Nigeria, you start having friends and family telling them, help me bring Ankara-inspired fabrics, help me bring this, help me bring that. Not because they can't necessarily get it over there, but when you look at the cost of shipping cross-border, it becomes way more expensive when you start adding 1 + 1 together. Chinese have already solved that. A kg from China to the US as of today is probably less than $1. It's a couple of cents. But a kg from Nigeria to the US is probably about $5 or $4. When you start looking at the cost of that, and then also the devaluation of Naira against foreign currencies, when you start doing the math, it becomes very difficult in that aspect. I think aside the conversation that has been happening on paper, every new government coming in and saying, oh, we want to invest in agriculture, we want to expand the exportation of it. I think the simplification of the policies is very, very important. And also the support that has been provided to these SMEs, rather than these SMEs thinking of my business is for daily survivors, They should start thinking of my business is for a larger profitability, because there's a global market out there that wants what you're selling. Locally made goods, made in Africa. The world are already woken up, especially around sustainability, eco-friendly products, biodegradable products. Nigeria has that in abundance. We don't have to search far and wide in order to get that. We are blessed beyond. But when it comes to the policies that help facilitate this trade, that is where the main conversation needs to start happening. Yeah. And that is what we're not seeing as of today.
I mean, we heard this last week about, Aliko Dangote, who's now selling fuel to Saudi Arabia. And a lot of people are wondering, Saudi Arabia, but that's not even on a macro large scale. We see what's happening in entertainment.
Yes.
And tech.
Yes.
Entertainers have been able to export their arts and their trade and, wield this soft power for Nigeria in spite of policies, in spite of government. And it goes to what you were saying about, people want to buy this thing if you make it available. Tech is also doing that to a large extent. We're seeing, they might have slowed down recently, but there's been a boom in tech, with people having startups. Some are doing well. People are crossing over on the continent. We're getting investors and VCs, from the international community. How can that be replicated, if possible, in other sectors, especially since you're in tech? What are you guys doing that the other sectors like agriculture, manufacturing needs to learn from to show what Nigeria can do export-wise?
I think you've answered the question. Like, with the way you answered it, I don't think I'm going to have a job tomorrow. But every joke's apart. Like you mentioned, entertainment has led the way. There is a huge global acceptance today of Afrobeat leading that. Nollywood is a huge one in India. Every Indian friends that I have watching Nollywood, and it was the reverse when I was growing up. A lot of us used to watch Bollywood when we were growing up, but it's the reverse. Now, when it comes to the tech aspect, the simplification of trade cross-border, firstly, cross-border payment has been solved for as of today. Now, you can easily send money from the US down to Nigeria, but when it comes to exportation, that is one aspect that, as of today, the likes of what we're doing on our side for the cross-border is very, very important. What we're doing is that we're bringing locally made African products and creating the platform where the international community can actually buy from these people directly. To give you statistics, last year alone, the need for made in African product was worth about $50 billion. And it is projected to grow to $1 trillion by 2030. And these are numbers that it can easily change. A good example was also the Dirty December. You saw a lot of people that came into the country. The opportunity is right there, and it's a moment that if we don't take advantage of it, Ghana is already thriving in that area by saying you can come back to Ghana. You don't need any kind of passport so long as you're African American. Don't worry, we're going to find a way to assimilate you back into the system. That is money coming back into the economy. It's improving the currency and all of that. In terms of what we're doing, the opportunity is that locally made African products, the world needs it. Now, if we don't make it easily accessible, guess who's going to make it accessible? The Chinese. It's going to get to a point where people will no longer care if it is made in Africa anymore.
As long as it's what they want.
So long as it is accessible to them and they can have it. And that is where some of this conversation needs to start happening. I know for a fact there are so many state governments today that have these youth empowerment programs, but it's not just enough to train people and give them the craft, subsidize and give them loan. You're still pushing them back into the same economy. They'll be selling to the same people who will find it very difficult to make ends meet. But what we're now saying is that rather than selling to your neighbor, you can now sell to international community. We're saying that we're bringing Africa to your doorstep at the cost of home. Because the main fear is, if I'm buying from Africa, they will charge me a broad price.
Yeah.
No, that is not going to be the case. And that's where tech comes in, facilitating that trade and controlling the pricing.
I mean, we did have a president in the past, President Buhari, who famously or infamously talked about Nigerian youths and laziness, and all of that. And people have wondered, are we just lazy? Because we see all these opportunities, but it doesn't seem to be exploited. Is it a case of laziness or the policies you're talking about? And I guess I'm leading into, you have an app, I believe.
Yes.
That's supposed to facilitate some of these things for young people, if possible. Talk to us about that very quickly.
Yeah, if it is laziness, I disagree. 100%. I'll tell you why. Because I'm a data person. The question we should ask ourselves is, why is it that when an average Nigerian lives in Nigeria and they go to Europe, they go to North America, Australia, they thrive? I'm a living example of that. I'm based out of Houston, Texas. I've had a chance to work for big organizations within tech and all of that. And here today, we are launching our own and we're building it and bringing it back to the continent. So I don't think it's a case of laziness. It's a case of not having the right policy to be able to support these individuals. And average Nigerians are trying. If you look at some of the fabrics, some of the materials that Nigerian produces, Nigerians are extremely talented. But the truth is that no matter how talented you are, if you don't have the right policy, right structure, right infrastructure to support you, the easiest thing is just say you're lazy.
What's your app called?
Way out.
What's your app called?
It's called Giri Today, Giri Today, Giri Today.
Look out for it. That might be the beginning of your glory story. Thanks a lot, Wale, for joining us today.
Absolutely.
And we hope Nigeria has a better end to the year than the way it started.
I hope so. Thank you so much, Ebuka.
We'll take a break now. When we come back, I have a very special guest you want to hear from. Stay with us.
Don't just stand there teasing me. Now it's time to show